on this thing? I will.
Subscriber.
Subscriber? I'm subscribed. I'm going to put my bra down.
And I just want to
Yes. Thank you. I didn't know where you went. Thank you very much.
Hi, Bercy.
All right, so I'm going to get started.
I know
This is burnout avoidance.
I have a question.
Yes.
How was your decaf?
What? I put decaf?
No, I put decaf.
Can you hit him?
See, right now, incriminating yourself.
I'm kidding. I put, it's legit.
Turn that off for a second. I also teach full contact fighting.
Sorry, we're playing.
With weapons. You come back.
Okay, thank you.
So, this section is on burnout avoidance. And so this is a piece for you to take back to think about yourself, your self-care, and for you to help your own groups. Okay? So let's just start off with it. I know terminology-wise, people say, oh, I'm so burnt out, I feel burnt out. What is it? What is burnout?
might not be the best time to use my dog.
Okay, that's true. Can I just get someone to help me scribe? I want to make a list. What I want to start off with is
Scribing? Anyone scribe?
what does burnout feel like? Can someone just, what does burnout feel like in your body? What does it feel like?
Hungover?
Hungover?
Overcaffeinated?
Mental anguish.
Yeah.
Good.
What does burnout feel like in your body?
Depression in a way?
Boredom?
Thank you.
Boredom? Anti what?
Fulfillment?
Anti not feeling fulfilled?
Feeling depressed?
You're doing a lot of work and not getting anywhere.
Rewards, right?
Not getting anywhere.
Not getting anywhere. When does it come up?
Hungry for
At meetings,
Yes.
right? What does that feel like in meetings? How does that manifest inside your body?
Tense. Because you're hearing but not listening.
What else?
You want to leave.
You want to leave.
It gets you angry.
It gets you angry.
Yes.
Maybe become cynical.
Yes.
What you were working for.
I think it's really important in activist circles and new groups for groups to figure out how they're going to incorporate burnout avoidance into their community and their culture and acknowledge it. So it's not this burden that people feel and they try to fight through. What happens on the norm is a lot of people feel like, I don't have time to feel burnt out. I don't have the luxury to deal with this feeling. So these heavy feelings that I'm feeling, I'm just going to keep trudging through. I'm going to keep going through the muck. But what happens is you're not organizing up here anymore. You're organizing down here. Right? You're not contributing to your group as much. What else comes up for you when you think about burnout and how it feels? How are you feeling right now?
Wonderful.
A little burned out, right? So, burnout is not about it's not just about being tired. Burnout is not just about feeling, frustrated. It's overwhelming exhaustion. That it's like it leads to cynicism and detachment and the sense of ineffectiveness. It's this lack of accomplishment. Those are all contributing factors to it. And what do you think is going to happen to your organization if half your organization or a couple of your key members are struggling with overwhelming exhaustion, cynicism, a detachment from their work, and a sense of ineffectiveness? How is that going to go for recruitment and retention of new people?
They're going to be ineffectual.
Right? Because it's like, who wants to work with me if I'm like, oh my God, it's all awful and this meeting sucks and I just want to go home and you can't recruit new people to work with you if you're not taking care of yourself, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. leading causes for burnout in I say our movement, that's a very loose term, but in the activists, in the world you're actively trying to like do something, one of the things is ineffective tactics, right? So the camps like this actually can help with burnout, in that you can start to grow your skills. One of the leading causes of burnout is that activists are like, wow, I saw that blockade go up, and then they won their campaign, and now all I'm doing is blockading roads, and I can't figure out why I can't protect the forest. Or, wow, those people, they took over the bank, and then the bank closed. So that must be an effective tactic, so I'm going to keep closing the bank. But because the skills weren't passed down from one group to the other, and the debrief didn't happen on the campaign, these new activists didn't understand that it actually took 5 years of organizing before that like last spectacular action happened that like tipped the scale for people. What the new people saw was the spectacular action that happened, and then they go out there and they keep trying to replicate it. And that's not, the onus is on us also, because sometimes what do? Sometimes all we do is share with you our spectacular actions. But we don't always share with you the years of work it took us to get there and the movement building it took to get there. And so you set people up for failure a little bit. Does that make sense? So that's why I think strategic campaigning is really important, and setting a time aside away from not becoming a 911 emergency group where all you do is direct actions for other people's causes. Because also if all you're doing is random direct actions that aren't leading to some sort of success, victory, or seeing the group build, that's also going to you're going to start to wonder about the impacts you're having. Any questions on that? So outside of feeling like you're ineffective and you're doing tactics that are ineffective, I think the other thing is just being out of balance, right? Sometimes we don't always do these alignment checks with ourselves, with our values, and the group of people that we're working with. When we are out of balance with your values, your core values, that's going to majorly impact how long you're able to work with the group of people you're working with and how effective you are. What happened?
Bird shit on my arm. That was There he is. There.
He got pooped on somehow. That bird was not ineffective.
Imagine that. Wasn't he being karma? Karma. He was being mean earlier, wasn't he? Giving you a decaf?
That's what you get for making the coffee comment, buddy.
Yeah. Karma. I hear a lot of stuttering.
So, just checking about values, because we spent a lot of time talking about coalition building. We spent a lot of time reaching out to people who don't necessarily have shared values with you, which is really important to grow the movement. You also need to be working with people that you have alignment with, you have synergy with, and that you have alignment and synergy with the roles you're taking on for your group. So does that mean inside your group you need to make sure that there's not 2 people that do all the fun stuff and 1 person or 2 people who do all of the detailed tasks that need to happen for the group to function, but don't have any rewards. The people who are entering all the emails, the people who are calling for the meetings and managing the listservs. You know, if your goal in life is to not have a computer in your life, and yet the only role that you're doing for your group is computer work, you're going to lose that person, right? So it's finding not just alignment with yourself and your values and the group you're working with, but alignment with where you want to be in this world and what you want to be working on. That doesn't mean that you don't do the tasks that you don't like. So you're contributing to a group. You all have to take on something that's not ideal. But you have to make sure that's in balance with the stuff that you do like doing. So you're able to get through the stuff that's less fun or less exciting to you. So values is a huge piece. And that's something that like groups, just a really simple tool to every now and then, every 3 months, every 6 months, when your group starts to grow, if you've gone from a 6-person group to a 25-person group, you don't want to make an assumption that all those new people have the same shared values as you. So sometimes it's good to go back to the beginning and be like, you know, what's our values? What's our vision for the world? What's our goals that this group does? And what do you do when half the group says our vision for the world is to start recycling and the other half says our vision for the world is to have a fossil fuel-free future? Maybe you got 2 groups on your hands. Or maybe you just have 2 campaigns. So just checking in with each other to make sure that your group's not growing so fast that you're no longer in alignment with yourself or each other or the group that you started. Workload is huge, right? how many people are pushing through more hours than it feels possible sometimes in a week to achieve your goals, right? High workloads are going to lead to chronic exhaustion. And we get these activists that do this like amazing thing and it's a spike, and then you don't hear from them for 6 months, and then they do the next amazing thing, and then maybe you don't hear from them for a year and a half, and then an amazing thing, and then okay, where do they go? So you want to kind of keep your eye out in your community for these awesome activists who are contributing, and you might want to be like, wow, your burnout sessions in between actions are getting longer and longer. What can we do to help sustain you? Right? These are like little interventions that we might have to do with each other about our workloads. Breaking your groups up into committees and making sure that like no person sits on more than like 2 committees at most for breaking up the work, so you can maintain. The goal is not to burn people out. If you're movement building, I'll speak for myself. I'm not an organization who's trying to get you to understand direct action so you can do an action for me. We want to create a radical movement of people to foster mischief spirit and to take risks and create change in the world. And I don't want you just for that action. I want you to go out and, sorry, just keep pointing at you, but I want you to go out and I want you to be able to be in this fight for the next 20 or 30 years, which means that self-care is a piece of that. And being able to talk to each other about what's working, what's not working in your groups is a piece of that, and helping each other manage their workloads, because we carry a lot of guilt and everything feels urgent. But, sometimes we take on too much. Sometimes we need to step back and be like, yeah, that's a great plan. Do we actually have the capacity to do that right now? Maybe we need to do that action in 3 months, and we actually need to double our group before we take that on. So, if you have something you want to say, just kind of raise your hand too. So I will say that like another major cause of burnout is control. So you got values, out of alignment values, your workload. Control is a big one. What do you think I mean when I say control?
Responsibility.
Responsibility? Maybe it's lack of control. What does that look like in your group? Lack of control. Yes.
Organization.
What?
Lack of organization, being able to keep my people on task and focused.
Right? Well, if you don't know what's happening, and you're just being told what to do, you're going to feel a little out of control also, right? And if there's not clarity of what the goal is, if you don't have a shared vision or a shared goal for what's going to happen that day, then a lot of people are going to feel out of control because they don't feel like they know what's going on. When people feel like they're being micromanaged, or they feel like they are, there's like a big unknown thing, they can't control any piece of it because they don't know the big picture, you start to lose people. So what are some ways that you can deal with the, sorry?
I was going to say, as far as the control thing, or like autonomy, like the balance between control and autonomy, and this is something, if I could be here longer, there are systems, that you can put in place that create that and give the clarity that people need in the direction, and I get in trouble saying that, sometimes doing actions, you have to have a hierarchy, for it to be successful. Other than that, I'm a very non-hierarchical person, but it'd be interesting to have that discussion sometime in the future about how those systems get set up.
It's true, because most groups that I work with, we have non-hierarchical structures on direct action. In the 18 years I've been doing this, I've done almost no actions with hierarchy.
Yeah.
But that said, everyone has control because everyone has consented to the game plan and understands it. But that doesn't mean that it's like if somebody was to break their leg right here and there's a medic, we wouldn't all huddle around and consent on how to fix it. Right? You do let the expert take lead and do their stuff. Inside of that, there's room for expertise and teaching people new skills. So there's like these levels. But the thing with control, especially in grassroots organizations where nobody's getting paid, or even when people's being paid, if you're managing a team of people, if your staff, if you are micromanaging your team, you're not setting them up for leadership. There's 4 levels of how to move even staff through your organization, or even the non-paid activists through leadership development, so they have the tools. You can't expect somebody to come to your meeting who's like, hi, I've never heard about Forest. Hey, will you write the press release for us? We're all equal here. That doesn't work. But taking the time to educate people the tools they need so they can be effective and have autonomy inside of it will lead to that group. But you have to share information to get people on the same page. So anything else on that?
different situations like require different systems of organization. And then some actions require more. And you can say you have a flat structure, but I've been in a lot of flat structure, non-hierarchical, where there is a hierarchy.
It's not unacknowledged hierarchy.
It's an unacknowledged hierarchy.
Yes.
And it's for a reason. It's a natural thing. I mean, a lot of times, so anyway, but that's a whole discussion that you can do a whole long workshop about.
Yeah, that's I'm wondering. I could go into how I set up horizontal to address that.
Yeah.
I even wrote something called Anti-Authoritarian Principles that the relationship anarchists in Chicago adopted, but I wrote it for Occupy Chicago because of just that. One way is for action that people have to have personally in front. The idea was, what I did in Rand Chicago was we had an action coordinator for that action, but they could not be the action coordinator for the next action. It was forced to rotate at every single action. That's one thing. And there's a whole lot of things I could go into, but I'll take up too much time.
But we can get through that. So 1 and then 2, and I'm going to go back.
So just to let you all know, we're going to send out a survey to everyone after camp, and it'll be an opportunity for you to mention important things that you want to contribute, and also things that you felt like were lacking, would like more information about. And I think we might convene like some conference calls to do these type of trainings, maybe verbally and through chat rooms. So
Awesome.
Okay, I want to share with you that was number one burning point for me working with the group was that everybody is focused on end results. And they want the end results to come the way they have envisioned. And I finally let go of that. I don't want to, it doesn't mean that I don't have a goal. I have a very good goal, and I'm working towards it, but I plant seeds. How it comes about, sometimes it comes even more magnificent as I thought the end results would be. But if you are too much focused on what it should turn out, and it doesn't turn out that way, and then say, I'm going to leave this group because of that. And another thing is, often, in the groups that I have worked, like their ideas changed, they changed their mission. And, I said to myself, this is not the way I want to go. So I became autonomous and worked as a single person towards that mission that was originally be agreed upon. And it's okay for me to work alone. I still make my dent. A dent a day, I'm finally going to get rid of that car. So this is how I look at it.
It's better to be flexible, to have your goals, and find ways to meet them. If you can't get your group back in alignment with your values, if you're not operating with a group, instead of spending all your activist energy to try to force the group to be the group you want it to be, it might be time to go start another group.
Yeah.
It might be a little easier, because what do we, so just flexibility is key in this movement. Another major reason for burnout in our movement is rewards. There's a lack of reward system. And some groups have this down so well. They are so good at community rewards and how they acknowledge each other in those groups. But it's good to acknowledge that some of these organizations treat people like bodies. They just want bodies out for their protests. You start organizing this urgent state, and you just want people to come. You get them to the meeting, you get them to their action, and there's no follow-up. There's no debrief. And when you don't do a debrief and you don't check in, you don't thank people for what they did or contribute, you're using people, and there's a lack of reward system built into that, so the chances of them coming back are low. We also, in order for us to lose maybe our activist ego and stuff, instead of me being like, I did this cool action, check all the stuff I did, if there's a system in my community to support me, so I know that, hey, people, there's ways that people get acknowledge the actions that I do, that I can also share the stories of other activists I know, that it doesn't have to be about just the stories that I was a part of. I can start sharing other people's stories. As a trainer up here, instead of using my examples always as a trainer, I could use someone else who's in the circle who I worked with once. It was their first action. I could use their story as the victory story and acknowledge them for what they did. Creating thank you systems, not assuming that people should do the work because it's good work that needs to get done. When someone goes out and postcards or leaflets all day for your action, they come back to the meeting, you say their name, you thank them for coming. These are little things, and I think it often falls off the radar of each other. We start taking each other for granted in our groups, and it's a major cause of burnout. And it's also something that we don't always have the tool set to articulate. We don't know why we're angry or frustrated or feeling hurt. But it's often because we feel like we're being taken for granted. How many people have dealt with that where they felt like, and then that's like a feeling that's harder to articulate sometimes. You know there's something wrong with how you're being treated, or something's going on, but you can't. That's a harder one to acknowledge. So when you're setting up your group, if you can just get into a system of starting to recognize each other's hard work and acknowledge it as a piece of it, you're going to go a long way towards doing that. So, and finding other ways to celebrate that. And part of that means celebrating your victories. If your goal was to get 50 people to the action, and you got 50 people to the action, celebrate that. Have a victory party, dance, barbecue, whatever that your group does. You don't have to wait till industrial collapse to celebrate your victories. You know what I mean? It's like you have these long-term goals, and you don't have to suffer through until you get there. If your goal was to have X amount of people turn out, or your goal was to interrupt something, you need to take time to celebrate those things. Another leading cause of burnout, I think, in this movement is a lack of community, and I think that also kind of can come down to feeling a little used or not having a way to plug in. If there's not trust, if people are not working with people they can trust, when I say community, it's kind of a broad term, it's very broad, but it's like if they're not working with a group of people they feel like they can trust, they feel like they can give ideas to. If I tell you a really good idea and you present it to the group to your own, that breaks down community trust, right? And so creating ways to, we don't need to have a community in order to be effective activists. I don't need to like you, you don't need to be my best buddy to go out and drink with, but you know what, when the two of us work together, we kick ass. And that's enough, and I can still treat you like an awesome person that you are and give you the props and respect you deserve, but maybe we're not going to be at each other's birthday parties. And that's okay, right? There's two ways of looking at it, but some groups are like, no, I actually want to start a really small group and we're family. We're family, we're going to work together for the long haul, and if I don't want to party with you, then I don't want to work with you. And that's a personal decision for the group of people who you are, but there's many models how community works. But a community of people, and if you are having weekly meetings, you are a community, whether you like it or not. And if you're not dealing with trust or conflicts, if you're dealing with poor communication, and if you're letting bad behaviors go unpunished, that's not how I want to frame it. But like, there needs to be accountability systems. People need to feel like they can trust the people and the accountability to stand up for the isms. Or someone said ouch earlier in the week. The people need to have trust that their needs are going to be taken care of, that it's going to be a safer space for them, that those issues are going to be dealt with there. And inside this community meetings, inside that meeting, it's just knowing, and that's where you check back in with the values piece too. Is this group of people the right group of people to be working together? Are there any comments or questions on that? You look like... Does that make sense to people? That's like, if somebody feels like something happened to them at a party the night before or with your small group, if they feel like they can't bring it to the group to be like, this happened to me and this isn't cool, or, hey, that whole meeting I was spoken over and none of you did anything about it. If they feel like they're going to get blown off, then they're not going to come back. Fairness is another big thing in this issue, and that's where that unacknowledged hierarchy thing actually comes into play and sometimes bites us in the butt. Where if people feel like they're like, if I have a problem and my needs are going to get met by the group, but if you bring a problem to the group and you're not sure that your needs are going to get heard because there's this unacknowledged hierarchy, maybe, you're going to lose people, right? In a workplace environment, that shows up in the isms, right? Where somebody's, some people have that, or every time they have a complaint or an issue, it gets dealt with in the community immediately, and other people have issues and they're ignored. And so it's watching out for that type of fairness, or changing the roles who the action coordinators are, making people switch roles. You don't always have the same media person, but you take turns and really learn each other's skills and tools and how hard it is to do those other roles. And for fairness, a lot of stuff comes down to being transparent. Just create transparency in your own organization, and that could be with your core group, but that helps. I feel like we need to get into, I want to keep this on time, and we want to get into camp reviews, and I just want to say, passion is key. Keeping the work that you're doing to be able to tap into the passion for the reasons that you're doing this work. I love the forest. I like being in the woods. If I can't get myself into the woods, into the backcountry, into the wilderness, I'm going to lose some of my passion. I'm going to forget why it is I'm working on what I'm doing. It's really good to check in with whatever it is that drives you, that you were able to connect to that somehow. And you got to do things that build your passion and keep your fire growing. A healthy organization is kind of like a healthy relationship. We all have these little fires that we're trying to do. The fires are passion, and we need people who are blowing on it to make it bigger, not blowing on it to put it out. Because I guarantee the feds, the corporations, the banks, societies that are trying to blow on your fire to put it out. And you need to be working with people in a group of people that's blowing on your fire to make it bigger, so you can be a little bit more effective and be in this movement longer. And you need to incorporate. I feel like one of the biggest things with burnout is to not frame things the way I just did. You should yourself or anybody else. Like, if one of the things that you can do for your group is don't should yourself or somebody else. If you have a great action plan but you're at capacity, you don't go to your group and be like, somebody should do this. It needs to be, hey, this is an idea that probably needs to happen. How can we achieve this goal? But when you start shooting people, they start to feel guilt, and sometimes they take on tasks because they feel like it should get done, and then they don't do it with the same fire and conviction that they would if they felt like they wanted to take that on or it needed to get done. Rewarding each other with self-care, actually making a list of the 100 things or the 10 things that you do that actually helps you recharge. You know, like getting some alone time, hot baths. My favorite what are some of your favorite quote-unquote guilty pleasures? Eating. What else?
Bad movies.
Daydreaming. Exercise. What else?
Bad movies.
Bad movies.
I like a Mountain Dew every now and then.
A Mountain Dew every now and then. What else? What else do you do for yourselves? What recharges you?
Excess sleep.
Travel, sleep.
Tons of sleep. Like
Tons of sleep. Excess sleep.
More direct action.
What?
More direct action.
More direct action.
Doing nothing.
Doing nothing.
Watching Democracy Now! Every day.
Dude, God, that would destroy me. That's great.
Lifts you up. It's uplifting.
You only watch it.
What else? What else do you do every day? What about dancing?
Yeah, dancing.
All right. Raise your hand if every day you do one of those things for yourself. All right, look around the room. Yeah. Okay. People call these things, I feel like I hear people say these are guilty pleasures. These are not guilty pleasures. These are simple pleasures that we need to do to take care of ourselves to move on, in order to be in this movement for a really long time. And then sometimes you need to do that with each other to support each other. If I know that you are a gardener and your garden's going to crap, because, see, I caught that. Going to crap because you've been working so hard in our group, and I'm over at your house and I see that your garden for the first time in the 8 years that I've known you is totally destroyed. As somebody in your community and friend, I might be like, what's going on? Well, my list is so big, I'm doing all these things, I haven't had time for it. It's like, wow. Okay, well, this is a big thing in their life, so how can we do this? Can we do a community party over here where part of the party is like weeding the garden and then figuring out a way to reduce your workload? Sometimes the best thing you can do for somebody in your group is ask them how things are going for them, and when they rattle off a long list, even though your list might be long, getting in the practice of saying, wow, what is the best way for me to support you to get through this? I'm not going to tell you how to support you. I can't tell you how to fix your problems, but I can ask you as a friend, an ally, and somebody in your organization, what is the best way for me to support you through this time? So I'm sorry that this was a little rushed, but I feel like we don't always acknowledge burnout. We don't always call for the breaks that we need. We often make each other feel guilty for taking breaks, and we need to support that because we have a long fight ahead of us. This is not a sprint. We need to be here for the long time. And although I was guilty of setting some bad practices, maybe during this camp and not giving people bathroom breaks or checking in if people are hydrated or not, I was not leading by perfect example here. We need to lead by example. New people need to see, because all they feel is the urgency sometimes, and the urgency of the meetings. If they see you being a martyr for the cause, or sucking it up, or blowing off a doctor's appointment because this meeting's more important than a doctor's appointment, it's unlikely that's true, but depending on what the doctor's appointment is. You're gonna show them everything that they need to sacrifice and give up to be here, and not show them all you need to show some balance. In a way that's healthy. And everybody knows what that level is for themselves. I can't tell you what that is. But hopefully you have a buddy or somebody in your organization that you're able to sit back to. And those buddy exercises we did are really useful. I always ask people to buddy up in their meetings and ask each other, what are your goals for yourself in this movement? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years? Because maybe you don't want to be working on the cause you're working on. Your real cause is this, but you see the short-term crisis here, but you really want to be doing this. and you have somebody, you say, well, this is actually my goals for myself in this movement. And then you ask your buddy, what is hindering you from reaching those goals? And what's hindering people from reaching their goals is often self-confidence, access to the trainings and tools that they need. And then you ask your buddy, how can I help you reach those goals? And then there is somebody in your group who knows what gets in your way. If you get in your way because you're shy and you need to work on standing up for yourself, there's somebody there to help you, hold you accountable for the growth that you want to take. And it creates a way that's easier for people to meet those goals. If there's somebody, if I'm not keeping it all into myself, but somebody knows that, wow, really taking a writing class is something that would allow me to express myself better. And if I tell somebody that that's what I need to do, then there's like a little bit more accountability that I'm not in the closet with something I need to fix. Are there any questions or comments?